Good morning, all from Japan, and very good evening to the speaker who is joining us from Brazil. Now, today's sustainability talk, the topic is sustainable fuels as a priority at COP30. And my name is Nandakumar Janardhanan. I'm the Deputy Director at the Climate Change Division at IGES. At COP30, which is nearing, Brazil aims to position sustainable fuels at the heart of global climate ambition through its initiative called Belém for X. Basically, this is a call to quadruple the production and use of sustainable fuels by 2035. Today's talk will focus on this initiative, which aims to secure international support to accelerate the transition to clean energy. Before inviting the speaker, let me briefly introduce the panelists. The opening remarks will be delivered by Mr. Hiroshi Ono, the Executive Director of the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies. Mr. Ono served at the Ministry of Environment at Japan in various key positions, including as a Vice Minister. Today's guest speaker, Mr. João Marcos Paes Leme, is a Director of Energy Department at Brazil's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He served at various Brazil's missions abroad, including United Kingdom, People's Republic of China, Russian Federation, and the European Union. He is also a polyglot. He speaks multiple languages. Other than his native Portuguese, he also speaks English, French, Spanish, German, and Russian. Today's discussant for the session is Dr. Osamu Mizuno. He's a Program Director at the Climate Change Unit at IGES. He formerly worked at Asian Institute of Technology, the UN Secretary General's Advisory Board, Ministry of Environment, Global Environment Facility, and the United Nations Advanced Studies Institute at Yokohama. So with this, I would now request Mr. Hiroshi Ono, the Executive Director of IGES, to deliver his opening remarks. Mr. Ono, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nandu-san, and good morning, distinguished participants and colleagues, and especially a good evening to João Leme, and Director, Energy Department, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Brazil, and I'm afraid it's a little bit too late at night, but I hope you are very fine. And I also hope that you speak a lot of language, and next you could learn Japanese a little to interact with Japanese delegation in Belém. So anyway, it is a pleasure to welcome you all to today's sustainability talk. I believe it's the second one on the topic of sustainable fuels as a priority at COP30. I'd like to start by congratulating Brazil for launching the Belém Commitment for Sustainable Fuels, or what is being called Belém for X. Sustainable fuels provide flexible, low-carbon options that can help decarbonize sectors where renewables cannot reach on their own. It is especially important for areas that are hard to electrify, like shipping and aviation. Belém 4X's message is simple but robust. The clean energy transition depends on combining renewables, efficiency, and sustainable fuels in a balanced and inclusive way. The ambition to quadruple sustainable fuel production and use by 2035 is a powerful statement, and it shows confidence, clarity, and leadership. It is also encouraging to see countries like Japan, India, and Italy already expressing support for the Belém 4X initiative. That diversity of support is important, and it shows that this is a truly global agenda. This initiative also creates space for South-South and regional collaboration to share expertise, co-develop technologies, and invest in new industries that create jobs and skills. At IGES, we see enormous potential for connecting regions like Asia and Latin America through shared learning. Both regions are rich in innovation and ambition, and both face similar challenges in scaling clean energy solutions. As we move forward towards COP30, Brazil's initiative offers a timely reminder. The energy transition is achievable if we act together with urgency and imagination. In today's talk, let's listen from Mr. João Leme on how to make sustainable fuels not just a policy target, but a real driver of cleaner growth. Again, my appreciation to Mr. João Leme for joining us live from Brazil and for sharing his evening time for this talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ono. Now let me turn to the guest speaker, Mr. João Marcos Paes Leme, to deliver his lecture. Over to you, João.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me well. Thank you to the Institute of Global Environmental Strategies for inviting me for this talk today. I'm very flattered to hear you expect a lecture, but I think this will be a sharing of inputs and hopefully also a conversation on a very important subject as we approach COP30. But before I proceed, I would like to thank you so much, my friend Dr. Nanda Kumar, Deputy Director of Climate Change Division, for approaching me for this session today. Nanda is a very kind and somebody I met in Salzburg at the Salzburg retreat, if I may call it that way. And we had the occasion to exchange a lot of ideas on the challenges we face currently before climate change. So my greetings as well, of course, to Mr. Hiroshi Ono, Executive Director, and Dr. Osamu Mizuno, Director of Climate Change Division at the IGES. Thank you so much for your time. Never a problem to speak this late in Brazil. We work 24/7. This is actually, I think, a very timely session because the Belém summit is just 10 days away. It will be a COP in the Brazilian Amazon, which has, of course, its challenges in terms of logistics, of which we are all aware. But also, I think it sends a powerful message to the world in terms of what we have at stake, how tipping points and how we still have time to avoid them, and how nature itself can offer solutions. So the COP30, I think, will be maybe a watershed COP. It's been called the implementation COP. And maybe because we've had so many COPs before, and now there's a worldwide expectation in terms of action, of moving forward, of scaling up solutions. Maybe, of course, there's still a lot to be negotiated, but what we've negotiated already provide us a roadmap and how to implement things and to move forward in this complicated juncture we're in of accelerating phenomena linked to climate change. So, well, I think nowhere is this call to action more relevant than the energy sector. So there's a more general message which I think might be necessary to reinforce here, that we need to accelerate and not question energy transitions as a top priority. The energy sector is, of course, the source of difficulties, but it's also where fascinating developments are taking place. And although not evenly throughout, but in some cases certainly not fast enough, but this is where we have to focus. And I think Brazil and Japan have come up with interesting solutions, which I'll share in a second. So most countries understand that we have a valuable roadmap for energy transitions in the form of the global stocktake agreed on in Dubai at COP28. From those GST commitments, we have extracted the goals of our action agenda of COP30 and the solutions to achieve them. So if I may speak for a second about the action agenda, this is something that has existed for a few COPs already, but this time around, I think it's been structured in a way in which we are not coming up with ideas and pledges, and even though I'm going to speak about a pledge further down the road, but the action agenda has been structured based on the COP28 action GST. So the GST is a document multilaterally agreed in which we can find a lot of commitments and objectives in the energy sector. And these objectives have been structured in a way in which we will bring actors from all walks of life together to implement or to try to scale up solutions to make these solutions viable in the years to come, not only in COP30. But since we are here to speak about sustainable fuels as a priority at COP30, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the action agenda, which many of you are familiar with already, but with solutions under the action agenda and even before that, because as Nanda and the previous speakers said, we are presenting the world with a proposal about increasing fourfold the production and use of sustainable fuels. But maybe I should, since I'm speaking to a mostly Japanese audience, step back for a couple of years and talk about a bilateral initiative called the Initiative for Sustainable Fuels and Mobility. This is something that was developed and adopted last year, 2024, in May, when then Prime Minister Fumio Kishida came to Brazil, and he was hosted in Brazil. by President Lula, who traveled to Japan this year for a state visit, but let's stay in 2024. And in 2024, Brazil and Japan launched this initiative, ISFM, Initiative for Sustainable Fuels and Mobility, which had this goal of achieving net zero by 2050, which is our common commitment. And they decided to join forces both bilaterally and with partners around the world to discuss projects and move forward with an agenda on sustainable fuels, such as biofuels, hydrogen, e-fuels, and also mobility and high-performance equipment, such as hybrid and flex fuel engines. So this is how the ISFM Memorandum of Cooperation was launched, and it was adopted with a plan of action. This is 2024, month of May, former Prime Minister Kishida's trip to Brazil. So fast forward to Osaka World Expo in September this year. So there, based on this plan of action, again, Brazil and Japan, as co-chairs of a ministerial meeting on sustainable fuels, adopted a summary report in which, for the first time, we mentioned, or we spelled out, the idea of increasing fourfold the production and use of sustainable fuels. So why fourfold? And here I would like to fast forward again to the pre-COP here in Brasilia just 2 weeks ago. This is when it was first officially, so to say, launched this sustainable fuels pledge called Belém ×4, or fourfold the use and production of sustainable fuels. And now it's maybe time for me to mention that this is underpinned by an IEA report, IEA being, of course, the International Energy Agency, who produced, and I know that Japan was very much behind this report. I don't know if you can see it clearly on the screen. So, Delivering Sustainable Fuels. This report was launched the same week, a couple of weeks ago, in which here in Brasilia, during the pre-COP, we announced the Sustainable Fuels Pledge, Belém ×4. The idea behind this is that over the last couple of years, we have been very much dedicated to increasing production and use of renewables, mostly in the power sector. So we're talking about mostly generating electricity through technologies like solar panels and wind turbines, and which is, of course, very, very, very much important. But we understand that these sources of energy will not cover the whole range of sectors that we need to decarbonize. And when we talk about hard-to-abate sectors, how they're known, we know that in shipping, in air transport, in cement, in other sectors of industry like steel, fuels will be necessary for some time, in some cases maybe indefinitely. And these areas have not been duly covered by the solutions that we have been developing, and at a fast pace, which is very positive. If we read recent reports on how the generation of power, renewable power, has been overcoming fossil fuels, coal, and so on, this is very good news. But we understand Brazil, and I dare say Japan, Italy, India, the four countries behind the launch of this initiative on sustainable fuels, that we need to complement electrification with molecules, because molecules will still be necessary in these sectors I've just mentioned. So this is the idea behind launching this pledge. And when I say it's a pledge, and that the action agenda is not much into pledges anymore, but this pledge is expected to be launched during the summit in Belém on the 6th and 7th of November, so 10 days from now, at leaders level. So there will be a session, probably chaired by President Lula, the president of Brazil, about energy transitions, in which one of the main topics will be delivering sustainable fuels. And the fourfold increase is what the IEA in its report identified as necessary and possible to do over the next decade, from now to 2035, based on 2024 figures. And something important to highlight here is that when I speak of sustainable fuels, I'm talking about hydrogen and its derivatives, biofuels, of course, which is the technology Brazil is most familiar with. But of course, we also have very modern hydrogen legislation, e-fuels, biogases, also gases, not only liquid fuels, because we understand that fuels have been in a shadow of sorts over the last years in this discussion, and it's also a necessary solution to decarbonize hard-to-abate sectors. So I invite you to take a look at the IEA report, which is available on their website, and of course, to take a look at our pledge, which is also now a public document, endorsed from the outset from these four big economies from different parts of the world: Brazil, Japan, Italy, India, and we've been talking to many other countries, and we hope to have a number of endorsements by Belém during the summit. And when I mentioned the action agenda, there are initiatives under the action agenda to take this pledge forward. So this wouldn't be just a political declaration, even though it's very important that the declaration has this political clout we want it to have from a number of countries from different parts of the world, big economies, smaller economies, developing countries, developed countries, who all recognize the need to decarbonize energy systems also from the molecule perspective. This is what this initiative is about. I think there's an aspect of novelty to it, because COP30 does need new ideas, and this is a new idea that covers this gap in terms of solutions to address the need to transition away from fossil fuels, because this is the famous line and the GST that usually generate so much controversy. And it doesn't need to be like that, because we all know that we need to decarbonize energy systems. We all know that demand for fossil fuels are going to decrease at some point. Some say it's very soon, some say it's not that soon. But anyway, it's going to happen. Economies need to prepare themselves for that. And the one interesting and important and I would say scientific way to do it is offering solutions and alternatives to fossil fuels so that these sectors can decarbonize their activities. And this is why we talk about sustainable fuels. A month ago, during Climate Week in New York, I was pleased to attend a session, and the COP president was there present, and other people from government and from other walks of life. But it was a session mostly in which companies and the private sector launched their pledge in favor of increasing the production and use of sustainable fuel. And they handed a joint letter to the COP president requesting COP30 precisely to drive international collaboration and commitments to increase the production and use of sustainable fuels. So there's a complementarity here in which countries identify this to be a necessity, and also the private sector. And I'm talking here about also oil and gas companies and companies, energy companies from all over the world, identifying that this is needed and this is viable and that we need to work together. One of the reasons why we think the Belém X4 pledge is important is that economies of all sizes and of all corners of the world will issue a message to investors, to stakeholders, to the private sector that these are necessary solutions. These are solutions that are worth investing in because they need to be scaled up, and you can only scale up something if the private sector recognizes this as viable. And when you have governments like now the four initial ones launching this as a priority in COP30, I think this sends a powerful message to investors so that these initiatives become viable and they can grow fast, as we watched, for example, solar energy or wind energy increase so rapidly over the past year. So as I was saying before, these are complementary initiatives generating electricity and generating sustainable fuels to decarbonize energy systems. If I may say, if I'm not talking for too long, just a few words about Brazil and its reality and its history with sustainable fuels, because it may be not familiar to some of the people attending the session today. Brazil is in the G20 among the world's largest economies, the one with the cleanest and most renewable energy matrix, around 50%. And the electricity mix in Brazil is now 93% renewable. So we have a history with hydropower. We have a history with biofuels that we are very proud of. We also have oil, and there's no contradiction there because the world still needs fossil fuels, still needs oil. Brazil is a big oil producer. But what makes us, in a way, single out internationally in terms of energy production and use is that we have developed this quite unusual pattern of renewables over the last 5 decades. The Brazil ethanol program is turning 50 next month during COP30, and this is something we are very proud of. And since I'm speaking to a mostly Japanese audience, I couldn't forget to say that Japanese companies are present in Brazil. Car makers, big ones, the biggest ones are in Brazil, producing what is a solution not only to those traditionally hard to abate sectors like shipping and air transport, but to ordinary light vehicles that we use in Brazil and that can use ethanol we have developed 20 years ago something called the flex fuel engines in Brazil. And these engines can use any mixture of petrol and ethanol. And petrol in Brazil has 30% now ethanol or 100% ethanol. I, in my car, use 100% ethanol. So the emissions of these vehicles are very low. And foreign car makers in Brazil, established here, based here, have been building cars and engines that are now hybrid. So they use a smaller version of a battery. It's not a full EV vehicle. It's a hybrid vehicle. And they can use fuels that we use in Brazil from 30 to 100% ethanol. So the carbon footprint of these vehicles is really, really much lower than the world average. And I would say in many places, even much lower than electric vehicles. So these are solutions adapted to different realities of the world that sometimes people don't think of. Electrification is fantastic. I think it's going to be widespread, but it's not getting everywhere at the pace we need to decarbonize energy systems. So in Brazil, we have this extraordinary experience with fuels and with vehicles using biofuels. And I'm very happy that Japan is a part of the success of this newer trend of putting hybrids and biofuels together in very low carbon solutions for developing countries. And I think this could be used in other parts of the world. But again, the pledge, the Belém pledge, the fourfold increase is not about biofuels only. This is about sustainable fuels, of which biofuels are one part. So I think I've spoken already too much. I thank you enormously for this invitation, for the opportunity to share these ideas with you and to talk about sustainable fuels and COP30, which I hope will be something to add to our collective efforts to fight climate change and decarbonize energy systems, taking into account different circumstances all over the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joe, for highlighting key elements of this important initiative from Brazil, and also sharing a lot of informative pieces and sort of putting it in a very structured way. So thank you so much for your wonderful lecture. Now let me turn to the discussant, Dr. Osamu Mizuno, to share his views.
Okay, thank you, Nandu-san. And thank you very much for Director Paes Leme for your very inspiring and encouraging presentation. I must begin my intervention by expressing my sincere appreciation to the government of Brazil for launching the Belém Fourfold Pledge on sustainable fuels and for placing this initiative at the center of the COP30 agenda. It is both visionary and timely. I also note an important sequence as Director Paes Leme already elaborated. One month earlier, Japan and Brazil co-chaired the ministerial meeting on sustainable fuels in Osaka, where ministers first articulated the same goal to expand global production and use of sustainable fuels at least fourfold by 2035 relative to 2024. The Belém Fourfold Pledge naturally carries this momentum forward under the COP30 presidency. That continuity, in my view, is a genuine strength of this initiative. At COP28, the UAE consensus set clear global objectives for tripling renewables and doubling energy efficiency by 2030. However, the role of sustainable fuels was not explicitly highlighted in that outcome. This reveals that a complementary international framework was still missing, one that addresses hard-to-abate sectors and connects the energy transition with industrial transformation. In this sense, the Belém Fourfold Pledge arrives at the right moment, providing both political visibility and a cooperative platform to accelerate investment, technology diffusion, and market creation for low-carbon fuels. It represents a concrete step from vision to implementation in our global decarbonization agenda. This pledge is therefore both necessary and forward-looking. And as a discussant, I would like not only to express my strong support to this initiative, but also to share a few reflections on how its implementation could be further strengthened. My first reflection is on how we communicate this pledge. We need to give due attention to the undeniable fact that sustainable fuels are less visible to the public than solar panels or wind turbines. Yet they are indispensable for hard-to-abate sectors like aviation, shipping, steel, and cement. Hence, it is crucial to consider how to gain the broad public support needed for this massive investment. In this context, it may be worthwhile to frame this initiative as part of an integrated global package with renewables and efficiency, and visualize how these three pillars reinforce each other. In other words, framing this initiative together with renewables and efficiency could be itself an effective way to communicate this vision, helping governments, markets, and citizens see how this initiative could have a critical role to play for the clean energy transition. My second reflection concerns the fundamental differences between renewables and sustainable fuels. While renewables are usually considered as domestic energy sources, sustainable fuels must evolve into global commodities, much like LNG or crude oil today. In this context, it is important to view this pledge as a starting point for creating a new global market. This implies the need for a far more complex level of international cooperation. As the pledge rightly identifies, we need a structured global cooperation framework that aligns everything from carbon accounting to certification systems and open trade. In this sense, I hope this pledge indeed serves as a starting signal for that complex but essential collaborative work. My third and final reflection relates to ensuring sustainability in its broadest sense. One of our greatest challenges will be to ensure that the pledge is implemented in an environmentally and socially responsible manner, as the text itself affirms. This must go beyond carbon accounting. We need to avoid trade-offs that undermine other societal goals. For example, if biofuel production competes for land and water, threatening food security or intensifying water stress, we may risk a situation where a mitigation solution inadvertently increases climate vulnerability. The carbon accounting systems envisioned in the pledge will be essential, but not sufficient. We will also need complementary mechanisms for verifying and disclosing wider sustainability performance, covering ecological integrity, land and water use, and social safeguards, so that the expansion of sustainable fuels genuinely contributes to overall sustainable development. Certification, in that sense, should not only be a tool to avoid harm, but also to highlight the positive co-benefits, such as utilizing waste streams or creating rural employment. And this broader approach to sustainability assurance can reinforce the credibility and long-term success of the pledge itself. In closing, I once again want to stress that the Belém Fourfold Pledge is visionary. It builds upon the UAE consensus and advances the agenda into those sectors that renewables alone cannot decarbonize, becoming a new and vital pillar of the global energy transition. It defines the what, the fourfold political targets, and more importantly, it invites us to begin work on the how, the operational framework for investment, governance, and trade that will make it achievable. In that spirit, I believe the Belém Fourfold Pledge can become a catalyst, not only for decarbonization, but for a more cooperative and sustainable global energy future. That concludes my intervention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mizuno, for sharing your views. I think I would like to highlight the same points which both the speaker and the discussant already mentioned here. That first of all, the Belém Fourfold initiative definitely aims to accelerate energy transition. And in this regard, the initiative signals a very strong, a very powerful political signal. And that actually will definitely have a ripple effect across the world. And as the speaker already mentioned, he's already got, Brazil already actually is getting support from different countries in this regard. At the same time, it also encourages investment. I think private sector investment as well as investment from big corporations are extremely important to take this initiative forward. I think that is definitely an opportunity, at the same time, a challenge as well to attract more investment in these sectors. Now, probably one of the biggest advantages Brazil has in this regard, as the speaker already mentioned, is its long history of successful operation in terms of development of biofuels. Many other countries are also having the same initiative, but certainly at a much lesser scale than what Brazil has. In terms of fuel blending, several countries have already initiated the same. Even, for example, India has something called E20, where ethanol blending is done up to 20%. And probably many other countries will also have similar biofuel blending initiatives that could definitely benefit from this initiative as well as catalyze these programs. And as the discussant also highlighted, it gives a lot of co-benefits, not only the environmental co-benefits, but also social co-benefits by contributing positively to employment and etc. At the same time, one of the concerns I have here is about some of the corporate players, big players, or the big oil fossil fuel sector players have recently apparently withdrawn from biofuel development plans. And I think it is very important for countries to ensure that these players will continue to have interest in biofuels, because their participation in biofuel development or sustainable fuel development is definitely important. And apart from this, I think the key point which both of you have highlighted is that these sustainable fuel initiative will definitely have a major role in working in sort of playing complementary role to each other. And that is critical for attaining energy transition. Now, before actually going to the audience for question and answers, let me also request the audience to share if you have any questions in the Q&A box. We'll definitely take it up from there. So before turning to the audience for Q&A, I would also like to highlight few points which I thought we can benefit from some additional comments from Mr. João. One is about investment. What is Brazil's view in terms of attracting more investment? Are there any discussion about how we can attract private sector as well as other corporate investment into this field, not only in Brazil, probably in other countries? And the second point I would like to hear from João is that I'm sure there are also major corporate players in Brazil involved in biofuel or sustainable fuel development plans. Do you also think that are there any concerns about some of the major players withdrawing from biofuel generation or sustainable fuel production in some other countries? For example, like companies like Shell and British Petroleum have certain times withdrawn from some of the initiatives. At the same, maybe the last point I would like to hear from Mr. João is to what extent, definitely it has a positive environmental as well as social co-benefit. And how would actually Brazil aim to highlight these environmental and social co-benefits as you are going to discuss this initiative in detail in COP? So I would stop here and turn back to João to listen to your additional views.
Thank you, Nanda. Thank you, Dr. Mizuno. I'm pleased to comment on a few of your observations and mostly to agree with the fact that framing the tripling and doubling goal together with the quadrupling of sustainable fuels is not only a good idea, it's also something that we recognize as necessary. The fourfold is a happy coincidence because we have 2 times, 3 times, and now 4 times. But also it's not just a matter of playing with words. It's also, as I previously observed, the fact that the tripling and doubling address part of the issue, but it doesn't address the whole issue. And fuels need to be a part of this equation as well. And I agree that communicating this not as competing goals, but as complementing goals is something that we have to work on and to make very clear to all audiences. The fact that sustainable fuels are global is a very smart observation, I must say. I myself don't think I had framed it in that way, but when you generate, of course, power with solar panels and the power, electric power is far less transferable than fuels. And you do need fuels to be a commodity that you can move from place to place. And of course, there's all these discussions about aviation fuels and book and claim and so on. You know that if a plane takes off somewhere and lands elsewhere, it's a far more complicated equation than just generation electric power that you use locally. So this is something that we might need to stress as well to highlight why some solutions are not usable everywhere. Carbon accounting is something that I'm glad you mentioned, and this is also a priority under COP30 and in the action agenda. And this is very close to your following point about sustainability, because And the example I was giving earlier is easier, perhaps, to understand for a wider audience about foreign companies, Japanese companies, but not only Japanese companies in a country like Brazil, understanding that a hybrid vehicle using ethanol and a smaller battery can be sometimes in some places less carbon intensive than an EV somewhere in the world. And why? Because people tend to start the accounting of emissions of some solutions at one point and of other solutions at a different point. And in vehicles, this is very visible, for example, because if you think about electric vehicles needing mining, needing transporting minerals to one side of the world and bringing batteries to the other side of the world and so on, and using sometimes dirty electricity. Dirty, I mean, not from a renewable source, maybe fossil-based electricity to charge an EV, and the user in good faith thinks that he or she is making a contribution to the environment, but the electricity they're using is from a fossil source. And so this is why carbon accounting is so difficult to explain, but at the same time so important, because you need to compare solutions using the same metrics. And this is something that is true for fuels, it is true for goods, it's true everywhere. If we are in the business of reducing emissions, we need to compare the solutions accurately, scientifically, and so carbon accounting is very important as something that we need to develop to make these accounting comparable and accurate and fair. Sustainability has all to do with this. You mentioned the expression ecological integrity. There's a lot of criticism, sometimes well-intended, sometimes not that much, I should say, about biofuels in particular. In Brazil, we have a very, this is very difficult to understand in Brazil for Brazilian audiences, because biofuels in Brazil take 1% of the territory. It is 3,000 kilometers from the Amazon. It usually regenerate land that was used for pasture that is now abandoned, and so it absorbs carbon. It has a really positive effect socially. It keeps people in the countryside. Of course, not all countries have the same conditions. So we have space, we have maybe a more adequate weather, and this solution is not perhaps a solution for all parts of the world in which you don't have the same availability of land, in which you don't have the same climate. But I think this applies to all solutions, doesn't it? You have to find solutions adaptable to your circumstance. Biofuels are very well adapted to Brazilian circumstances. It may be very well adapted to parts of Africa or Asia or other parts of the world and Latin America, not in colder climates. And this is true for all solutions. So we need to address this issue without this. It's a sort of a prejudice in a way, that you don't, oh no, this solution doesn't work in my country, so it cannot work anywhere. No, in my country it does work. It works. It's scientifically proven. It's 1% of the territory. It has avoided millions of tons of emission over the decades. So this can be a solution elsewhere, not everywhere. So all solutions have to be sustainable, not only biofuels, not only fuels, all decarbonizing solutions need to be sustainable. about a few concerns about players retreating. Some of them perhaps are, not all of them. This is not the impression we have in my country. This is not the impression I get from Climate Week in New York, in which big companies were around a table and very much enthusiastic about producing more biofuels, more sustainable fuels, more hydrogen, more e-fuels, addressing this lack that we have identified of energy sources that cannot be covered by one or two solutions that have to be addressed elsewhere. There are groundbreaking solutions coming from areas like maritime transport. One of the major players, I've been careful, as a silly civil servant usually is, in not naming companies, but one very a big major player in the maritime transport business has been coming up with fascinating developments in the use of fuels to decarbonize this, which is one of the most hard to abate sectors, which is maritime transport. We've just left a session at the IMO in London in which many of us expected different results. But in spite of that, you see the players engaged in decarbonizing. It doesn't matter if the narrative goes one way or the other. Many big players in the business and many countries, most countries, I would say, are convinced that the transition is here to stay, that we have to make the best of it, that it will affect countries differently. We have to help those that might struggle to adapt to a new environment, to a new paradigm of economic, of a different economic paradigm. It's going to be easier for some, it's going to be more difficult for others. Nanda, as we discussed in Salzburg with all those colleagues from different places in the world, in countries whose economies depend on fossil fuels revenues, and they were not there. I don't know if you noticed this, you probably did. They were not questioning whether it is going to happen. They were there trying to come up with solutions because they will have to adapt. So we need to help them adapt, and we need to make the best of these solutions in a context in which climate change is a reality we need to deal with. So these are my comments. I hope I haven't skipped any questions or issues.
Thank you so much, João, for highlighting this all these points, and exceptionally important points, because you have already touched upon the importance of sustainable fuels in the shipping and aviation industry. In fact, we also got the same question, but from one of the members in the audience, one Suyama-san. But anyway, since you have answered, I'm not actually going to that one. This is really an important conversation that we hope to continue. And the initiative which is started in Brazil and also with the other countries like Japan, Italy, India have already been supporting this initiative, and many more to come. We really hope that Brazil will definitely lead the sustainable fuel revolution and sort of a transition to a clean energy fuel mix in the near future. Now, we also got one comment from one Ronaldo, who is saying that there's a special booth in the COP30 Blue Zone where people can actually visit to understand what technologies will be used. So I'm sharing this information for the benefit of other audience. But once again, I would like to thank you, Joao, for your time, especially in this late evening. And we hope to stay in touch with you and continue this conversation and learn more from you. Let me also offer my sincere appreciation to Mr. Hiroshi Ono for offering the opening remarks, and Mr. Dr. Misuno for being the discussant, and also to all the audience, members of all the audience, for joining this session in the early morning. And once again, thank you, Joao, for your time in the evening. And thank you so much.